Welcome everybody, thank you for coming. Have we got any apologies?
We have Councillor James Meston.
No one else can't. Questions of interest on items on the agenda? No, can't see any hands. Move on to item 3, which is to elect deputy chair of the committee. Have we got any nominations?
Anyone want to be deputy chair of the Finance and Governance Committee?
Do it, no one else wants. So Dennis proposing, have we got a seconder? Ben, all those in favour?
I'll do.
Um,
Just so you know, future reference, often it's always nice to nominate someone who isn't here if you don't want to do the job. Serves them right, they're not turning up.
Deputy chair is not that difficult.
No, I don't think so.
So thank you for that, Emma. Thank you for your for volunteering on. Yeah, thank you for that. We move on to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 26th of April. It's been previously circulated. Has anybody got any problems with them in terms of accuracy or any amendments? No, is anybody willing to propose them?
Yeah.
John, Councillor Roche proposing, Councillor Andrew seconding, and all those in favour? Thank you. Public participation, I can't see any members of the public in the room. Have we got any submitted questions?
No.
Thank you very much. So we have no questions submitted by the public. To move on to item 6, which is the financial year to date. And that again has been sent round with the papers. Has anybody got any questions or comments that you want to make?
There's nothing desperately interesting this early in the year to note. The only slightly unusual thing, which is a positive, is the grant income, which has arrived from the Architectural Heritage Fund to back fund our heritage officer. So that's in there. Shows up as an unusual figure, but other than that, everything's on profile.
Anybody got any questions? Comments? So we are reviewing, so we don't have to take a vote. To approve the payments of £64,796.76p from the 1st of April to the 31st of May. Again, it's been circulated and it's gone through the due process of audit, internal audit. Has anybody got any comments or questions? No. Is anybody willing to propose the approval? Councillor Minshall and Councillor Strange answer second. All those in favour? Thank you. We move on to the joint subject of council policies, which I'm sure we've all read thoroughly. And so I'll take them individually. Has anybody got, and we'll take a vote on block. Has anybody got any comments on the financial risk assessment?
So the financial risk assessment is normally, if it's all changed, just some dates on the front. It was approved by the internal auditor, and the amendments were adopted by recommendation to the internal auditor last year. So it's an annual review. So there's nothing to challenge on there as far as I'm aware.
The cookie policy, which I don't think refers to biscuits, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, the cookie policy is that due to the obesity pandemic, we no longer have cookies. No, again, it's only the dates that change in that. It's not our review.
The ICT policy.
Again, I think it's just the dates on that one. Went through it. No dates and updating the site. It's 3.2, page 26 from 96. There's a slight amendment. We don't update the site on a daily basis, so I'll take the daily basis out to manage expectations. That's all.
Then we've got IT website and email policy, which says to be deleted as duplicating vague poetry above. and the internet, email and social media policy.
Yeah, we've effectively got a duplicate policy there that's redundant, so I'm putting forward to be deleted. There's no value anymore because other policies have been adopted over time and this seems to have just been fallen by the wayside.
Right. So last, information and data protection policy.
That isn't amended within dates, that's as advised by our data protection officer, which is an external professional, who's also internal advisors on these things associated with the Data Protection Act, which is a specialism, and it's right to have that specialism oversight. Nothing's changed apart from the dates.
Right, anybody got any comments on data protection? No. Is anybody willing to propose the recommendations? Dennis? Ben second. All those in favour of adopting the updated policies, thank you. 9, an update from the project oversight group. We have a report circulated on this, but do you want to?
I do, yeah. The project oversight group was set up to have members scrutiny oversight of work progress in any significant projects that we have, triggered by the town investment plan, which one project allocated 1.45 million to Crewe Town Council's repurposing our High Streets project. The project was created and formed on the request of a call for projects by the town board, and was part of the package, is part of the package of 10 projects within the TIP. Its principle is to find vacant and redundant town centre commercial properties and repurpose them for commercial use downstairs and potentially residential use upstairs, and bring them back into active use in an accessible, financially accessible as well as an attractive way, mainly to encourage independence and quality businesses as well as quality living accommodation. That's the premise of the project, and its sustainability. Since developing that project, things have moved on. The commercial property market in Crewe has heated up somewhat, in that there are currently 0 properties available within the parameters of the project in Crewe, and equally costs have inflated significantly as well. The principle of this report brings to the idea that I am of the clear understanding right now there's no way of delivering this project because there are no properties available. Simple as that. And what direction do you want me to take now, or do you and the project oversight group want to take? The last meeting of the project oversight group didn't happen because, well, it was just done a bit last minute, to be honest. But we did circulate information and share information, and so this is brought to you off the back of that. It's looking at the project in itself as a principle is sound. The issue is if there's no available properties, then no project can progress. I would like to highlight that gives a risk to us. Should we progress down this road, then we could end up with a situation where nothing is delivered and we fail to secure the funds for Crewe in that failure. I would hope that we can openly talk to Cheshire as the lead funding responsible organisation to identify that risk and seek, with negotiation to the Department for Levelling Up, that funding is still allocated to Crewe and potentially accessible to other projects that will be hit by the increasing costs. Other options include that we redefine the project into a shopfront improvement project, understanding that the timescales to do that will be very tight, if not unachievable. If the project could identify for other projects such as Christchurch, I would perceive that as there's nowhere near enough time to deliver a business case for that sort of thing. Or we plough on and hope the properties come available. There are issues with the business case in this because this has come to light. So there's work to do on the business case as well, and how to redefine it anyway, if it's going to go forward at all. It could in effect be a sacrificial project that the funding is reallocating within the TIP. But that's not our decision to make here. I'm just seeking direction of what we want to do. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I am correct, Anne, that the business case has got to be submitted by July.
this is drafted and given to Cheshire East already, but it does require some refinements. I spoke to them today. They've now been updated due to some.
But the final
reviews.
business case
It's
is
the
got to be
14th of
submitted
July.
by July.
So just over a month.
Yeah, just for information. Has anybody got any comments, questions? Emma?
Oh, and it's not actually relating to the decision. It's relating to the fact that you're saying that there aren't properties around that this can be done with, whereas we look at the state of our high street. And this is the comment you get all the time. The high street's a mess, why aren't the council doing anything about it? Is it that they're just being held by businesses and?
It's exactly that.
So basically, it's the businesses that are causing the problem.
We say good businesses, it's
The
the
landlords.
commercial investors, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not going to crucify anyone on this one, but at this time, I've been checking the availability of commercial property in Crewe for some months. And it means that Crewe's a very positive viewpoint. Externally, people want to invest in it. That's the positive to take away from this. The negative is that, yes, there are a number of vacant units in Crewe town centre that are not on the market or available.
They're just frozen, basically.
Well, it's called carpetbagging. They're sitting on
Right.
it waiting for them to come to some value. Or they're waiting for tenants to come forward to take them on, but large-scale investors can weather that storm. And that's what basically
happening.
the positive of that is that they recognise the opportunities in Crewe, which maybe we don't see on a day-to-day basis because we walk up and down streets where the shop fronts are vacant. But there aren't any properties now. They've been reducing over time. I don't see that pattern changing anytime soon. So yes, you're right. And the reason that we did this project, you're exactly right. The driver behind this project originally was quite often people understandably say, why don't the council do something about putting more interesting business in the town centre? All these empty units. That's the driver behind the project. Exactly right. How do we make it sustainable? But unfortunately, since coming up with that idea, the market has moved away and the funding isn't in place yet.
You see, we've got the difficulty is that people come and say, oh, but why aren't the council doing anything with that property? They think we own them all.
They do, that's right.
And this is what we've got to get out there is that no, we don't. And, you know, yes, Cheshire East owns that site that's derelict and is doing something about it, but the rest of it is all owned privately, isn't it?
Yes. For example, at both ends of the central block, you've got former Marks and Spencer's buildings held by a large property investor, who I understand has been open, that they're waiting for the Royal Arcade to move forward.
you would need to go up and agree with the town board, wouldn't it?
Oh, it certainly would.
Yeah, there'd be various routes to jump.
Yeah.
Your point is valid though, that there is a presumption of inactivity rather than inability.
At least that'll show that we are doing something.
Sure does, but there's a positive.
So, item 10, to consider in principle the opportunity to receive funding income to support Crewe Town Board. Pete, you want to lead on this? I think we have had a paper on it.
Yeah, the principle, and it's a principle you're asked to consider, not a decision. Crewe Town Board is seeking to be more engaged and engaging with its communications. Crewe Town Board has zero resource other than the time given to it by its volunteer members. So on that basis, they struggle to get any messages out at all, other than some that come from Cheshire East Communications within their various parameters, restrictions and guidances. And there's a will within Crewe Town Board to have some capacity to do their own communications, effectively issue their own press releases, issue their own social media, and let people update people on what they're actually doing, which is a positive position. They have notionally got available to them £10,000 from South Cheshire College to pay for this, but they have no means of housing, managing, overseeing, looking after that service. So we've been informally asked, would we host that, effectively employ a person paid for by an external funding to do it for them. And there's a lot of detail needs to iron out about that operationally, and also responsibility and process and who is accountable in the end. But before we do a load of work on detailing all that out, you're being asked now if you would support the principle of hosting an externally funded resource. Resource is something I mean about time, someone's time to do this.
Anybody got any comments? Emma?
So would that be actually physically employing someone else or using some of our team and then charging out for them, or?
Yeah, again, hasn't been done. So
No, but-
notionally, I would always counsel against, not wishing to pick on any industries, but I would counsel against paying for PR agencies, because that's one option. £10,000 to PR agencies is an expensive lunch. It's not going to go far. So I would counsel that you should have an employee to do this. Now, whether that's a standalone employee on a day or a day and a half or 2 days a week, I'm not sure if it's going to be 2 days a week's worth of work to communicate with the board, but that's what them decide. Then I would say that should be an employee. There's greater accountability and it sits within a system of policy and all that sort of thing. So that's that. Whether that would be, the only way that could be absorbed within our current structure is if our communications officer took on more hours and one that had to be consulted and agreed to and all that sort of thing. And whether that was agreed in principle of the board, that's okay, or there's all those details, or whether you just get someone working 1 or 2 days a week to do the job. I don't know, I'm not fixed on that. But I would counsel it should be an internal something or other, subject to it being fully externally funded.
Yeah.
That includes all on costs, like IT on costs and a bit of resources. It should be nil cost to the council.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, I think it's good that there's been no cost to the council, but my only reservation would be that whilst the Crewe board, they set out and it's separate from the town council and it's separate from Cheshire East, whilst there's members on it, it's separate. And my worry would be that if we employed somebody to be the clerk for the town board, that we would by inference be agreeing with everything the town board do, because I certainly don't agree with everything the town board are doing, and I wouldn't want to be in a position where I discussed it with my fellow councillors before we got behind it. So I'm not particularly happy in that aspect of, and you put it in your conclusion, greater awareness that I can go with all, but it says greater comms density coming from Crewe Town Council. We might employ somebody that's going to be the clerk for Crewe Town Board, and that's the difference. No, I
Well,
don't.
no, you do not, it's nothing to do with employing a clerk for Crewe Town Board. It's to do with, social media.
I,
To do with the
No,
website.
sorry, I don't agree with that.
well,
I don't agree.
you're right, it's not a clerk, it's communications, but I do agree with some of what Councillor John Rose is saying, which is it does expose the council to greater association alignment with the Crewe Town Board, which although we may have no disagreement at this time, it could cause a concern at a time if something was decided by a board that the council objected to. So there is a clash, a potential clash there that does need to be, you need to be aware of. So John has a concern to raise on that.
Well, that obviously that's a concern, but to me, this person would be managed and salary paid by the town council, but would be totally doing stuff for the board. So there should be a minimal clash of interest.
But
But it's zero to us, but it's currently £10,000 external.
no, but I think what John's trying to say is that it's the association.
But
It's in the public view, yes?
But who in Crewe will know that the person doing the website for the town board is that the town council being used as a vehicle for that? Ben, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so this is an in principle decision.
It's in principle, yeah, because there's lots of details to be worked out.
Well, in that case, can I propose that, subject to further discussion, we agree to it in principle and delegate it to the clerk in conjunction with the chair, that provided further information satisfies any queries we've got and suits the person that this is intended for. It's an in principle decision, you know, we're not.
Yeah.
If I might just suggest a slight wording change to that. It isn't in principle, but it would be in principle, and the detail would have to return to this committee anyway. And then, because if it were to impact on our structure, it would then have to be approved by council.
Well, I propose we approve an in principle decision.
Right, anybody willing to second? Emma will second. Anybody got any comments before we go to the vote? All those in favour? Anybody abstaining? Any against? Right, item 11, to consider the budget setting schedule for delivery of the 2023-24 budget. And this is in the papers, and I think it's probably pretty much following what we did last year. So.
Yeah, it's the same principle as every year, as far as I'm concerned. If we start it nice and early, everyone gets as many opportunities as possible to inform it, and it's reviewed. Put numbers in front of this year, looks like about 11, 14 maybe times before it goes to council, and hopefully then everyone feels like it's representative of thoughts. The only thing to consider here, I'm not necessarily recommending it, I'm not recommending it, but I do feel it's not wholly necessary. It can be considered, and I have done it in the past, that prior to a local election for all seats, you could consult with the community on a broad scale to inform it. That's quite expensive, but it provides an opportunity for the budget to be fully refreshed. That said, in Crewe, I'm not sure of the added value there.
No, I'm not sure the added value of the public consultation either. Bearing in mind that responses tend to be low to public consultations in Crewe.
That's kind of what I'm referring to, yeah.
So, has anybody got any thoughts on whether we go for public consultation? Emma?
What would you say in that circumstance is the advantage going for public consultation?
Well, by public consultation, I'm on a broad level. I have in the past issued to every household a consultation document on the year prior to a local election. That being the place where the far more response to consultation, they're far more engaged, because they have that luxury, and equally there's more diverse political response. But I would still say there should be some consultation, so we will put information about the budget whilst it's been drafted on social media and the website, and people will comment accordingly, and some of those comments will be helpful and informative. So that is consultation in and of itself. I'm not saying we wouldn't consult, it's just that broader, high level, heady sort.
Yeah.
I would say would be a bit unnecessary and excessive in the setting where responses are low and potential administration changes are unlikely. I just said unlikely.
If we do that, at least they can't turn around and say we're driving it from them.
So a sort of social media
Yeah.
consultation rather than post it through everybody's letterbox.
That would be quite expensive as well, wouldn't it? About £10,000 or £15,000 mark there.
Yeah.
Anybody, any other comments? Right, so if we're considering, do we need to vote or not?
Yeah, you just recommend this draft schedule of budget statement to council.
So, do we have a proposal and
I'll move it.
second? All those in favour? Now to the problem of office accommodation.
I will still, as I've said all these times I've discussed this, that our office accommodation is quite nice, and I'm in no rush to move or change it significantly, but it's right to look at it when we consider being positive employers and it being not providing currently an accessible workspace. Should we need it? We don't need it at the time, but that's not the point. It has been mooted that at this committee that potentially a partition, foldback partition wall could be installed at that point to make the space more flexible. And I was tasked to go and look at it. In the pack, I had received one quote back by that stage. I think about £5,500, £5,000, 4,985. And since I received similar quotes, 5,300 and £6,000. So if you would mind to have a partition foldback wall, then that's what you. I am not convinced of the value, to be quite honest. We have to move the radiator from start, and where you're sat, Emma, the wall will come out to where you are when it's folded back. So
Yeah.
we wonder about the meeting room space after that when you want the full meeting. But it's a consideration if you want me to progress it. But that's the sort of numbers you're talking about, plus some extras for messing around as well. I'm not trying to sell this to you.
I'm just wondering if it's worth putting £6,000 just to a door. I'm sorry, that's no other way I can put it. It's a concertina door, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which then impinges, doesn't it?
Yeah,
About there, yeah.
I mean, it's not going to take up much room. The
No,
ones
but then
that
I
I've
couldn't
seen,
see.
Well, there are bonuses, I suppose.
Could we have a virtual?
but it cost us £5,000.
Probably, because it's virtually 5,000.
Well, we're right, I think, to keep looking into different options, and that keeps the subject alive, so we don't miss an option. I'm not recommending this to you, to be quite frank. It seems a bit spendy for nominal gain.
Anybody got any other
Ben
comments?
disagrees. Go on, Ben. Put us right.
What would be the cost of actually having an architect? Or
We
We
somebody-
did that.
we
It was
did
about
that.
£4,500 last
It
time
was-
we got that quote.
No, wasn't that? It was more than that. It
More
was,
than
it
that.
was like, it was inflated and inflated, wasn't it? And that.
In
quote
different
that you-
stages,
Yeah.
it got very complex. It
Yeah,
might have gone to
yeah,
£6,000.
yeah.
It was in that order.
I think we dismissed that, didn't we?
Yeah, it was.
That's before we even spend the penny.
Yeah,
give it.
well, an architect, I asked an architect for a quote, I asked lots of architects for a quote, but only one came. To see about what reordering the office space to make it more user friendly, make it more suitable for modern working practice, all that sort of thing. And we looked at that, I think, at the last meeting or the meeting before, and the quote was, let's say about £4,000 to £6,000 for their insides, which we could get a folding door for that. So I think members, and I thoroughly support members of this, felt that, you know, without any notion of where it would lead us, might have been a bit excessive. So I am sorry, no, it's, but we're no further forward, it's no to keep looking.
Yeah.
But I'm not recommending to do any spend at this point.
I propose that we forget it and carry on looking.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's there
We're
want to come back
aware,
to
we're
it.
aware of the details.
unless inflation makes it more expensive, which it probably will.
So if we are receiving a report, we don't actually need to,
Yeah.
unless you want some direction.
I feel mentally directed, I put noted on it, you know, it's right.
So item 13, which is to receive the annual report. I'd like to thank the authors of the report for putting this together for us. Has anybody got any comments?
Yeah,
Councillor Reynolds.
I'm going extremely positive. I think it's a good report. I think it shows actually what the council does in the community on lots of levels. Doesn't mention planning, but that's.
Do you know what, that is entirely my fault, because I forgot to put that.
It's quite all right, I won't take it personally, because we're on air. But I say,
I can add a page.
no, I think it's extremely positive. It does show that what we're trying to do, improve the residents and so on and so forth. But if I may just hone in on one particular point, Pete, if you would allow me. In the Operations and Improvement Committee, it mentions the Crew Cleaner pilot project and the Rangers. Well, I'm actually involved in the Crew Cleaner pilot project, and you know the Rangers quite rightly been acknowledged that helping particularly in the alleyways, you know, where we've got residents and myself is on the committee of the two South alleyway committees, and there's some excellent work being done. But it goes on to say that we purchased a new mobile CCTV cameras, which will be installed at hotspots. Now, you well know the hotspots. We see it on the Craft website, particularly in two streets, Myrtle Street and Law Street. You know, they tip on a regular basis, and as soon as it's cleared up, it's back. And there's lots of comments, social media, and all this about what I do now. Now, we bought those cameras. They're gathering dust somewhere. They need to go into place. Now, I know that there's some issues with Cheshire East and where they're going to go and so on, but this Cheshire East is actually, Glynis is doing an exceptional job helping and assisting in the Crew Cleaning project, and they actually been stymied by another part of Cheshire East that don't seem to be wanting to be able to action it, and we need those cameras. We need them to pop up, like it says, mobile cameras, not cameras that are fixed. Mobile, come along, you set it up, and we could do it. And I would, you know, it's nothing to do with this report, but when I read that, you know, I'm behind the scenes working and trying to get that in place. So it's a positive for what we're doing, but really those cameras, because we bought them, we need them in action.
Right, entirely agree, and we can clarify that the issue we've found is that these cameras have been installed. In fact, I've been involved in having them installed elsewhere in Cheshire East, on Cheshire East Highways assets, without any issue whatsoever. And I'll slightly unprofessional, I'll say what seems suddenly Cheshire East Highways have made an arbitrary, random statement to obstruct installation of these cameras on their lampposts, or lighthouses as they call them, in Crewe, stating that the towers aren't appropriate and the cameras can't be fitted. Now, we know from one, my personal experience, and two, CCTV units experience of being installed elsewhere in Cheshire East, not just places I've worked, that it can be done and has been done. Why they won't allow it now, I have no understanding of. All I can promise you is that I continue to raise this issue with Cheshire East Highways to point out this inconsistency and disappointment. And I'll continue to do that until we get brought up, and we will get brought up, but it's the obstruction, as I too regularly have, of having to deal with Cheshire East Highways.
Well, so if I may just come back on that, I mean, when we talk Cheshire East Highways, we see enough on the planning about they're not very helpful when it comes to crew. And you've just said now that, again, that they're not helping us. Always seems to be crew. And I have to say, I'm quite happy to say it on record, because it's so frustrating. If they lived in Lord Street, Myrtle Street, or any of the other streets, they wouldn't take the view. But if you live in a leafy bit and Ulster Pal, or Nether Alderley, or wherever else, is it Potshrigley, then it'd be okay, wouldn't it? And I get annoyed. I really get annoyed about it, because I'm a Crewe town councillor, and when I finish my 4 years next year and finish, I want to get those, I want to improve Crewe, and there's a lot of work going on, a lot of funding by Crewe people to get that, and we're not getting it because we're stopped by highways, and it's on record now, and I'm quite happy for you to send a letter, and I want to propose that we send a letter to Cheshire East saying that those cameras should be on tomorrow.
And I'll second that.
I will send that letter tomorrow. As stated.
If you want to amend that, please do, because I get extremely angry.
There is one thing wrong with that. I went into a pub in South London about 50 years ago, and over the bar it had,
We're on camera.
no, it had, over the bar it had a sign, free beer tomorrow. And one of my mates said, let's go back tomorrow. Yeah, all right. Went back tomorrow and he said, free beer tomorrow.
Well,
If we say that tomorrow,
I can happily contact and email or write, if you want to write a letter, I will do. Cheshire East Highways at their director level, as well as their, not portfolio, chair level, and express this to them, that this inconsistency is having a detrimental impact on the lives of people in Crewe and needs to be removed immediately. I'm more than happy to represent that in my name, not just the council.
Hopefully, if the committee agree, that the F&G committee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could we?
If that's it, I mean, that's subject to.
Could we send it to the chief executive?
send it to chief executive as well. Yeah.
Or send it to them all.
Chief
What I did
executive,
email.
Craig Brown and James Burns.
Would you, is it essential this is sent in letter form, or can I send it in email form?
No, you send it in
Well,
email.
you can do a PDF letter, can't you, and email it?
Tell them we're
No, you want that, rather than being pedantic now.
through the chair, tell them we're incandescent with rage.
Incandescent range.
And they can watch the video to see Councillor Rose
I've got
express
one
it.
video on this.
can you ask Councillor Rowan to use those?
It's a good job I've got a spell checker.
Whichever means you feel fit.
I just think it's very unhelpful when we've actually put money towards.
Yes.
We bought these cameras so that we can tackle a problem, which is a real issue. And that they are just not supporting us, is the way I would put it.
Entirely agree. Entirely agree. It's wildly frustrating.
We are-
I see no practical reason why they can't install.
Should we take a vote?
Yes. All those, oh, you haven't been you seconded, yeah. All those in favour of writing to various people in Cheshire East. Right, because I don't think that's actually relevant to the annual report, but, so.
Well, technically, you can bring anything
So
up.
The way we're doing it all.
So we're receiving that, so,
Put it around.
thank you for that, and again, we don't need a report, about, yes.
Can I just ask perhaps if something about planning can be added?
I can do a page on planning, that's that easy, yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
So,
I repeat to them, they do a great job.
so that's the end of the meeting, last item is Date of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 13th September at 10 PM. I think we can say now that it's gonna be face to face. It
Yes,
says location and format to be confirmed, unless of course